Come celebrate with the Discovery Channel. Big, bold, beautiful Alaska turns 30. Join us in a state of celebration on the Discovery Channel.
This is a special presentation of the Discovery Channel.
This is the last frontier, a land where men and women have come to carve life out of this country that is at the same time beautiful and forbidding, and whose vast natural setting is both a resource and a source of inspiration. This is Alaska, a state overwhelming in its size, but one whose story is of its people, many of whom came here to tap the riches of the earth and stayed, enriched by the country that envelops them. Alaska is the successful blending of the natural and the new, the confluence of the traditional and the revolutionary. It is the coming together of various peoples, people whose industry has developed the wild land, and who make sport of the natural elements that form life in this, the 49th state. Hello, and welcome to the celebration of an American state. I'm David Suzuki, and I'm standing on top of the Mendenhall Glacier just above Juneau, Alaska. Join me as Alaska turns 30. In the long, distant past of geological history, the land we know today as Alaska was being formed. Current theories trace the beginnings of the Alaskan landmass to what is now known as the South Pacific, as part of a vast prehistoric island that has been given the name Wrangellia. With the shifting of the Earth's great plates, Alaska moved north and east, coming to rest finally at the northwest corner of North America. Here it collided with Asia, forming a bridge between what are today two separate land masses. Across this land bridge came the first settlers of the American continent, tribes of hunters and gatherers from Asia, who probably came over the bridge in search of prey. These people were the ancestors of today's Indian and Eskimo tribes. The original Alaskans walked across the Bering Land Bridge from Asia tens of thousands of years ago. American settlement began with the purchase of Alaska for $7.2 million in 1867. The gold rush of the early 1900s and the oil boom of the 70s brought more people to this true American melting pot. The first European settlers of Alaska were Russians who came to trap furs. When Tsar Nicholas I was in need of cash to support the Crimean War, an agreement was signed to sell Alaska to the United States for about 2 cents an acre, or $7.2 million. To many Americans, this was a ridiculous amount of money to pay for an empty, remote land, and the purchase became known as Seward's Folly, after William Seward, the Secretary of State, who negotiated the deal. With the discovery of gold in the Yukon River at the start of the 20th century, Seward's investment began to pay off. The first wave of American immigration to the state began as thousands of prospectors rushed to Alaska, hoping to stake a claim. Only some struck it rich, but many stayed on to start making a life on the new frontier.
Gold was a very, very important part to the development of Alaska. It was gold that opened up the wilderness areas and began the transportation corridors, the shipping businesses, the railroads.
The next great wave of Alaskan development came with the military buildup of World War II. Because of its border with the Pacific and the Japanese, Alaska became an important U.S. outpost, making the development of the territory an ever higher priority for Washington.
The federal government discovered Alaska and has discovered they didn't have any defenses here, and they had to defend it. So then the Army moved in, and we convinced the Army they should build here.
In June of 1942, 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese began an assault and occupation of the Aleutian Islands of Adak, Kiska, and Attu. The American territory of Alaska had become a war zone.
The Japanese used to fly over all the time. Of course, they would sound a warning siren, and I would close the photo shop and rush out into the trees up the mountain as far as we could go. And that happened about every 2 or 3 weeks for one continual summer.
After a bloody battle, the Japanese were repelled from the Aleutians in the Pacific. Peace was achieved, but the military stayed on in Alaska and continues to play an integral part in the development of the state. After the war, it seemed Alaska had been discovered by the people of the lower 48 states. They came seeking the American dream, a place to make a new beginning. Like immigrants everywhere, many, like Walter Hickel, arrived with little in their pockets.
Third person I asked loaned me $10. And so as a young friend was with me, and we bought breakfast for 50 cents, we split it. And we pooled what money we had and bought two railroad tickets to Anchorage, and I had 37 cents left.
The pay was so much better than Wyoming. That was a big incentive too. And it was a new challenge.
Alaska was the land of opportunity, with vast natural resources ready to be capitalized on. But as a federal territory with no vote in Congress, Alaskans faced taxation without representation by a government thousands of miles away in Washington. The only way for Alaska to achieve home rule was to petition for statehood. After 2 earlier efforts had failed, in 1956, a state constitution was written, and a committee was formed to take it to Washington as a sign that Alaska was ready to join the Union and make the transition from federal territory to self-government as a state. After almost 2 years of hard lobbying, a statehood bill passed the House and Senate, and on January 3rd, 1959, the goal of so many Alaskans was realized as President Eisenhower signed into law the bill making Alaska the 49th state.
Alaska celebrates the long-awaited grant of statehood with enthusiasm worthy of gold rush days. There isn't a dog sled in sight. Anchorage is a modern city, but Alaskans go all out to celebrate. All that remains is a plebiscite, and Alaska will officially become the nation's 49th state, and by far the largest, more than twice as big as Texas. They're already wondering where to put the new star. For the purposes of celebration, it's a glittering king-size star that dominates the field. The celebration in the streets lasted through the night. Elsewhere, they dyed the Chinook River gold at Fairbanks, the old placer mining center. In Anchorage, a 50-ton bonfire blazed till the early morning hours. Once Russian America, then Stewart's Folly, now becoming the newest state in the Union, Alaska stands on the threshold of a dynamic new era.
Brought to you in part by Alaska Airlines.
In the beginning, flying was a real adventure. And on many airlines, it still is. But at Alaska Airlines, we go out of our way to make sure getting there is just as pleasant as being there.
The following announcement is for honorably discharged U.S. veterans age 18 to 59. The toll-free number shown on your screen is used to respond to the following. Do not, repeat, do not miss this important information exclusively for veterans. Veterans of all branches of service and spouses of qualified veterans, stand by for complete details.
Already over 2 million veterans have called to find out how this card can serve them exclusively. Hi, I'm Roger Staubach. If you're a veteran age 18 to 59, or the spouse or widow of a vet, write down this toll-free number, because one quick phone call can bring you all the facts about a plan that offers you a choice of 10, 20, up to $50,000 in term life benefits. $50,000 for under $10 a month. And since your spouse is also eligible, your total family protection can reach up to $100,000. All this at affordable veterans rates. In a matter of days, an information package will be sent directly to your home. In it, you'll find all you need to apply right away. And in most cases, you don't even have to take a medical exam. As a veteran, you owe it to yourself to get the facts about this exclusive offer. So call now.
Veterans age 18 to 59, call 1-800-247-3000. Call now and you will also receive an updated guide to veterans benefits. Call 1-800-247-3000. That number again is 1-800-247-3000.
Join us for Profiles of Nature, an award-winning series that goes deep into the heart of the North American wilderness. Take an intimate look at the vibrant life and natural splendor of the creatures that inhabit our world. Profiles of Nature. Now both Tuesday and Thursday nights at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, only on the Discovery Channel.
Alaska is a state so big that Alaskans think of their land as a country broken up into 4 different regions: the frozen Arctic, the wild and wide open interior, the populous southwest, and the distant panhandle of the southeast. By far, Alaska's largest city, the hub of the southwest, and in some ways all of Alaska, is Anchorage. Nearly 200,000 people, or almost half of the population of the entire state, live in and around this metropolis. Here, Alaskans can find all the culture and entertainment they can ask for, diversions you won't see in the more remote regions. Preserved here, too, in the Alaska Wildlife and Natural History Museum, are exhibits of Alaska's heritage, so modern-day Alaskans can keep in touch with their state's past. One of the most important dates in the history of Anchorage came on March 27, 1964, when the Earth began to shake. When it happened, Anchorage publisher Bob Atwood was practicing his trumpet.
Well, that happened on Good Friday afternoon at 5:37 p.m. Scientists later said it shook for 4 minutes. That's an awful long time. But it got worse and worse, and things were falling off the wall, and all the bookcases and the chandeliers swinging, and things more than normal. So naturally, I stopped blowing my horn and looked, and I remember seeing the house go way over like this and then come back up again. And I figured it can't go down like that very many times and come up again. It's going to go on down. So naturally, I got out, and I went out in the yard. We had a big yard, and there I found waves coming across the lawn, just like water. The waves went through the blacktop driveway and the concrete curbing, didn't break it. You just see the waves go right through it. I watched my house break up, and it seemed to be a real living thing that didn't want to break up. And it would hang tough, and you'd hear timbers break and things rolling around in the house as it went. And as I was moving toward an open area, a crevasse opened up and I fell and into darkness. And that seemed an interminable fall, going on and on. And that's the one time I wondered, is this the end? Could it be? And I figured, this is a silly way to die, falling in a crevasse. And then I found I couldn't move. My right side was all buried, my left side free. And when I tried to move, I couldn't. Why? Because I still had that trumpet in this hand buried down there. And I remember that was the last thing I owned. I'd seen everything I had go, and I had to release these fingers and let go of that trumpet and pull my hand out, and how I hated to let that trumpet go.
Anchorage had seen earthquakes before, but none to match this one. Measuring 8.6 on the Richter scale, it was one of the most powerful quakes ever recorded anywhere, more than twice the force of the great San Francisco earthquake. Anchorage's main business district was devastated, some buildings dropping as much as 10 feet in a giant mudslide. But with a persistent spirit that characterizes Alaska, the people of Anchorage began right away the process of cleaning up and rebuilding. Today's Anchorage is an emblem of that unstoppable Alaskan spirit. But as with anything Alaskan, the city is never far from the natural wonders that form and frame the state. Here the people of Alaska are reminded of the strength and beauty of nature. The Chugach, Kenai, and Alaska Mountains surround Anchorage. At the foot of Mount Alyeska, and reachable only by snow machine in winter, is the Crow Creek Gold Mine. Founded in the gold rush of the late 1890s, the Crow Creek is still yielding a steady flow of gold and of tourists who come to this vacation area in the summer months to get a glimpse of frontier life and to try their own hands at prospecting. The mine is owned and operated by Cynthia Toohey. Having grown up in New York City, Cynthia came to Alaska at the age of 21. She worked as a stewardess, fished in the bush country for a while, and finally settled here at Crow Creek. Even now, she has no electricity, no running water, and her only means of communication with the outside is a CB radio. What would lead a native of Manhattan to choose this lifestyle?
I came up in 1957 to look for a husband. It was 5 to 1 then. 5 men to every woman, and I thought it'd be a fun place to go.
And how'd you do?
Great, great.
The new Toohey family came out of the bush to run this old mining operation. In the summer, with its proximity to Anchorage, Crow Creek is a tourist haven for people from all over the world who are drawn by the same pull that gold nuggets in a pan have always held. A steady flow of visitors makes the mine profitable year-round.
My kids and I run this, and it's actually it's an active gold mine. We mine the creek in the spring and the fall for the gold, and then we mine the tourists in the summer. And we'll have, as I said, 15 to 20,000 people here.
Cynthia says she could never go back to Manhattan, partly because she has some very special ties to her part of Alaska.
My husband died in 1962. He died of cancer, and he wanted to be buried up here. So we had him cremated, which was his wish, and we sprinkled him in the flower beds. And then my dad also wanted to be buried up here, because he had lived up here with us for 10 years, so we also cremated him and sprinkled him. And it's become sort of a tradition. I have about 8 people buried in the flower beds right now. I have very, very healthy flower beds. It's great. So I get up in the morning, I say, good morning, Arnie, good morning, Barney, good morning, Cleo. You know, I have a lot of people that I do have buried. But it's great. Why not?
Perhaps the most significant event in Alaskan history since statehood has been the discovery of vast deposits of oil on the Arctic shores of Prudhoe Bay. This has been the latest of the prospecting booms that have brought waves of people and money into the state since the gold rush of the early 1900s. Through this 800-mile pipeline rushed 2 million barrels a day of this precious black gold. Alaska's North Slope. Its coast is on the Arctic Sea, some 300 miles north of the Arctic Circle. It was here that the enormous reserves of oil were discovered in 1968. The strike was called one of the greatest mineral discoveries of all time and was expected to yield as much oil as had ever been found in North America before. Alaskans saw the opportunity for great wealth as this latest boom would bring more people and dollars into the state. But one problem remained: how to get the oil to market. Supertankers couldn't reach the frozen shores of Prudhoe Bay, and the closest rail link was 450 miles away in Fairbanks. So a group of oil companies banded together to build a gigantic 4-foot-wide oil pipeline that could carry over 400,000 gallons of oil per minute overland 800 miles to the port of Valdez. But only a few years after the pipeline was completed, world oil prices declined, and the profits that were meant to drive the Alaskan economy began to taper off.
The economy is down now that the pipeline is, and the oil prices are down. Lots and lots of empty housing, and people have left as they've lost their jobs with the pipeline. Of course, that affects every line of business.
Alaska has seen the boom of the gold rush come and go, and the swell of oil profits that attracted people to the state in the 70s has faded. Alaskans who want to stay here have to find new ways to make a living off the land. Here at Alaskins, people make wallets from this. Searching for new business, a group in Juneau discovered that the salmon skins that were being discarded by local fisheries could be made into leather. They learned how to tan and dye the skins and turn one industry's waste into another's profit. Together they formed a company called Alaskins that manufactures and markets these salmon leather products. Every one of the partners and employees left jobs that were affected by the decline of earlier booms. These are some of Alaska's new entrepreneurs.
I'm Mike Howard, formerly a special assistant with the Department of Corrections. Now I'm the tanner that developed the process to turn salmon skins into leather.
I'm Roy Arns. I used to be in the construction business. Now I'm the master leather cutter here at Alaskins.
I'm Roger Lewis. I'm formerly a precious metals dealer here in town, and now I'm vice president of marketing.
I'm Dan Callahan. I used to sell real estate. Now I sew leather here at Alaskins.
A central part of the Alaskan character is the ability to roll with the times and to persevere. Take, for example, the state capital of Juneau. The city was made capital of the territory of Alaska not long after gold was discovered at the head of the Gastineau Channel in the late 1800s. Far from the rest of the state it represents, and reachable only by sea or air, Juneau has been able to maintain its position as the seat of government. This is the original Senate chamber of the territorial capital of Alaska in Juneau. It was here that men and women met to debate the future of Alaskan statehood. In the 30 years since statehood, there have been several efforts to move the capital to a more central location. All have failed, and Juneau has endured. A city of some 30,000, of whom fully half are in some way connected with the state government, Juneau is also Alaska's sea link with the lower 48 states. Tourists, or visitors as they are called in Alaska, come to view the spectacular beauty of the mountains and fjords of the southeast. Another group of Juneau entrepreneurs is renewing a local tradition, beer brewing. The Chinook Brewery opened in 1986, developing the national trend to local microbreweries in a wholly Alaskan way. Owned and operated exclusively by Alaskans, this plant fills, labels, and ships 24,000 bottles of beer every Thursday. Using an old Alaskan recipe found in a library, Chinook has won gold medals for the past 2 years at the Great American Beer Festival in Denver. The native husband and wife team that runs the brewery is happy to be able to keep their business in Alaska.
There's a lot of unique things to Alaska that makes it fun for us, as far as not many other people float plane their beer out to communities. Not many other people barge it up on barge, all their ingredients and things like that. So there's a lot of unique things to Alaska that makes it pretty fun, challenging, but also fun.
I think also you take two young people with our backgrounds not necessarily associated with beer, and Alaskans are pretty accepting as far as having an idea and pursuing it. And it's kind of a situation where we had a dream and a lot of people shared it with us.
Compassion's always meant a lot to me. Won't you join people for the ethical treatment of animals today?
They've launched it.
That's impossible.
In today's business battles, you need the latest intelligence. Today's Wall Street Journal.
Think we still have time to move?
Maybe.
Call 800-345-1900 for this special Journal introductory offer. 12 weeks for just $29.75 with a money-back guarantee. 12 weeks, $29.75. Call 800-345-1900 now for the Wall Street Journal.
Maybe Alaska isn't all igloos are nice. All I know is he went up there to find out why tourists that should be coming here are going there, and he hadn't come back.
Then let's do something about it.
Let's go.
Governor, delegation from back home just arrived.
You're all a bit overdressed, aren't you?
You know, I didn't even come up here for a vacation. I wouldn't tell anybody.
Alaska.
Please listen carefully to an exciting TV offer. The Aero 10-band radio, one of the finest portables ever made, now available for rush delivery direct from the New York showroom. Superb electronics let you roam the airwaves. You enjoy rich, full-volume FM, AM2, indoors and on the go. You can eavesdrop on airline pilots and sea captains. You have instant contact with the National Weather Service. Tune in the TV channels in your area and still more. International shortwave bands let you roam the world. There's a police band, fire, civil defense, plus 40 channels of CD to tune in to all the good buddies. If the world could have just one radio, it would be the beautiful Aero 10 band. Just 3 $33 payments. Call now for rush delivery. Federal Express available.
Credit cards only by phone. Call 1-800-253-1300 or mail your check to this address. For fastest delivery, call 1-800-253-1300. That's 1-800-253-1300.
I think it's the best thing for social drinking.
The traditional pint, the traditional food, the traditional welcome, the traditional pub. You can't get better.
Meet the Brits on their own turf at the corner pubs. There, the notorious English Reserve is at its lowest ebb, and the company is as warm as the beer. Tour the English pubs. Tonight at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
Since the 1700s, Alaska has seen groups of white settlers come and go, while the native Indian and Eskimo peoples of the state have lived here continuously for tens of thousands of years. The many various tribes share a common heritage of living in harmony with their land, and continued that heritage right into the modern era. An active leader of today's native community is Mary Jane Fate, whose life has been a link between the traditional and modern Indian ways. An Athabascan Indian, Mary Jane spent winters as a child fur trapping with her family.
This is a picture of my family out on the trap line, and from the right side going left is my pop, myself, my little sister, our friend from upriver from us, and my brother in the background. And we lived in that tent. This picture is a picture of my mother and me in Rampart.
Her native village of Rampart was too small to have a high school. So like natives from all over Alaska, Mary Jane was sent to a Bureau of Indian Affairs school hundreds of miles from home and family.
It was hard. It was very hard. We didn't have telephones, and we didn't have a direct contact. We were not able to go home when someone passed away in our family, or for Christmas, or any other time. It was very hard. But what we did was we got involved amongst ourselves in the school sittings, and I believe that's where I got involved with our native politics.
Native Alaskans of all races have long banded together to define and defend their rights as a people. This is the Alaska Native Brotherhood of 1918. By 1971, Native lobbying convinced Congress to pass the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, which turned over 40 million acres of state land and $962.5 million to Native development corporations. Some of these Native corporations have net worths that might put them in the Fortune 500. But the dollar value of their lands is not what is most important to Native Alaskans.
It is truly more. We are more concerned about the use, the occupancy, and the protection, and in keeping our land. I think, to tell you the truth, we don't even have it on our balance sheet.
Like their land, education is also highly valued by the Athabascans. So like their mother, Mary Jane Fate's 3 daughters went away to high school and college.
As my grandmother used to say, food was for our survival, and we had to travel. We were nomadic people. We were the poorest of all ethnic groups in the state of Alaska. So we traveled as long as we could get food. And now she says our food is education is our food.
This Indian woman grew up in a tent with no floor, but went on to become president of her native corporation and to sit on the board of Alaska Airlines. She sent her children on to earn undergraduate and graduate degrees from Harvard, Princeton, and Stanford universities. But as far-flung as Mary Jane Fate's family may be now, they all come back to Rampart every summer to help with the fishing and to maintain a link to where they come from. Rampart is found in Alaska's interior, 60 miles northwest of Fairbanks. This region of broad and bare wilderness is divided by the Yukon River, once a great highway for gold prospectors. The vast interior of Alaska holds the great beauty and variety of nature in its raw state. Here temperatures may reach 100 degrees in summer and 50 below zero in winter. And this is the region that has undergone some of the greatest change since statehood. The Athabasca Indian village of Rampart, here on the banks of the Yukon River, only got electricity 3 years ago. Statehood gave its native Alaskans some economic and political independence, sending villages like Rampart rocketing into the 20th century.
And as you can see, some of the tropical forest, coniferous forest.
Thanks to a radio telephone link with a professor 440 miles away in Nome, the young people of Rampart no longer have to leave the village to earn a college degree. A program run by the University of Alaska brings higher education to remote villages all over the state.
The hibernation and the short life cycles.
Now the people of Rampart are able to gain an education without losing their home. The successful investments of the native corporations are being put back into the communities. 5 years ago, Rampart was able to erect a modern school building, and for the first time, the town has its own indoor gymnasium. Although only 50 people live in all of Rampart, and high school students still must be flown to larger cities, the village now has enough room for separate elementary and junior high classes. Though there are some references to native culture in the Rampart School, the curriculum is much the same as that found at any state in the rest of the Union. But with better schooling here at home, young Indians still live the native life every day and stand a better chance of keeping their culture intact. Some of the present teachers grew up in the village, such as this woman, who has her own twin daughters in her class. With the state providing more accessible higher education, the native villages can grow while still passing on traditional ways to new generations. The village also has its own health clinic, providing care free of charge to natives through the Public Health Service. Competent local care is particularly important since the nearest hospital is in Fairbanks, a 40-minute plane ride away. There are at least 4 generations of Athabascans living in Rampart, and the older villagers carry on much as they did before statehood, living the life of their ancestors with few changes. Were they happy when they heard Alaska had joined the Union?
Yeah, something different.
Something different.
I wasn't. I really wasn't.
Why?
I loved it the way it was, and I didn't want the big changes. And I voted felt against the same it. way too, but then I was happy about the lights. Didn't have to fill the gas lamp every night. So I was pretty pleased about that.
The best way for mountain climbers to reach their base camps on Mount McKinley is by plane. In fact, the best way to get just about anywhere in Alaska is by air. To Alaskans, air travel is as common as taking a bus. Distances in Alaska are immense, and the populations are sparse. One of the major ways of communicating and traveling between villages is the airplane. In fact, 1 out of every 36 Alaskans has a pilot license. If you find yourself traveling in this state, you may end up in a DC-3 or a 9-seater Piper Navajo. Sometimes it's a helicopter. In Alaska, freight is so important, it goes first class. I'm going by coach. In this state, just about everything moves by air. With only 12,000 miles of roadway in an area of almost 600,000 square miles of mountains, lakes, and forests, there are many places that simply can't be reached any other way. To get an idea of the distances Alaskans must cover to travel their state, just try to imagine driving from Minneapolis to Miami.
Alaska couldn't exist without aviation up here. There's just no question about it because of the lack of roads. It's our #1 means of transportation without any question at all. Anchorage right here is on the world hub of the airlines between Europe and the Orient. But in getting around the state to the little villages and even some of the bigger towns, Fairbanks and Juneau, without aviation, it would be almost impossible to have a state without it. To me, it's a thrill. I really enjoy it immensely, and that's one of the reasons I came to Alaska when I did, nearly 30 years ago, because of the love of aviation and the out-of-doors.
Where the world comes to life, the Discovery Channel.
January 1968, Tet, one of the holiest times of the year. Vietnam exploded as Viet Cong guerrillas launched hundreds of attacks in an offensive that proved to be the turning point in the war. Now, CBS Video Library is proud to present a remarkable series, The Vietnam War with Walter Cronkite, using footage gathered from CBS News archives to create a record like no other, of a war like no other. CBS News reporters take you behind the scenes.
You were with him when he was hit. What happened?
Drop. They take you to the front lines. of a war that had no front lines.
It sounds like the whole world's exploding around you.
The Tet Offensive is your introduction to this historic collection. Yours to preview for 10 days, risk-free. Future cassettes in the series include Courage Under Fire, profiles of American heroes in action. The World of Charlie Company, life and death in a typical rifle company. Viet Cong, the elusive enemy. How do they think, fight, win? No book, no movie, no documentary can tell the stories of this war as powerfully as this look at the war itself. This is the way it happened, as reported by the CBS News team.
If you had to choose the most important event of the Vietnam War, it certainly would be the Tet Offensive.
Preview the Tet Offensive for 10 days risk-free. Return it for a full refund, or keep it for only $4.95. Receive future cassettes in the Vietnam War with Walter Cronkite, one about every 6 weeks, to preview for 10 days risk-free. Keep only the ones you want for $29.95. There's no minimum to buy. You may cancel at any time. To get the Tet Offensive, have your credit card ready and call this toll-free number now.
Call 1-800-554-5656.
Every day, the Discovery Channel takes you on a global adventure. To help plan your journey, the Discovery Channel presents TDC, the monthly program guide that takes you to places like Japan, a culture rich in tradition and beauty. Meet the artists of a different breed on the streets of New York. Explore the wilds of Africa and witness the power of nature. TDC fine-tunes your viewing experience on the Discovery Channel. It keeps you informed and up-to-date on every minute of programming. Let TDC become your guide and receive 12 monthly issues for only $11.95. Call 1-800-TDC-8343. That's 1-800-TDC-8343. Your ticket to adventure.
Maybe Alaska isn't all igloos are nice. Maybe the governor likes it up there.
Oh, Drexel, that's ridiculous.
I know one thing. He went up there to find out why tourists that should be coming here are going there, and he hadn't come back.
You know, I should be getting back for that range meeting.
Governor, I just canceled it.
Well, good.
Alaska.
This is Blue Babe, a bison that was killed during an Alaskan winter some 36,000 years ago. It was discovered perfectly preserved during the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline a few years ago. Animals have always played a special role in life in Alaska, providing hide for clothing and shelter, food to eat, and a means of transportation. And ever since statehood, laws have been enacted to protect the special relationship between its two native populations, human and animal. Alaska holds a great variety of terrain and climate that supports wildlife of many kinds. This makes the state an outdoorsman's paradise with a seemingly endless supply of fish and game, such as the salmon that spawn in Alaska's rivers. And for those who live off the land, it seems nature had set the perfect table.
I never knew what a healthy diet we were on until now. You read about all the ailments there is, illnesses, and then what they recommend that you eat. And here we had the best diet in the world, and we didn't know it, but we loved it.
The whale also has a special place in Alaskan life. More than a tourist attraction, just recently they were in the forefront of the world's news as two of these huge mammals were freed from the frozen waters at Point Barrow. The whale is closely linked with the life of the native people of the North and West Alaskan coasts, the Eskimo. They have long depended on whales for their food, and the famous Eskimo blanket toss began as a means to lift someone high enough to spot whales for a hunt. Today, the limits of their whaling is greatly restricted, but Alaska's Eskimos still maintain their old ties to the animal world, as with this prayer to the great polar bear. As cold as their region may be, Alaska's Eskimos have never lived in igloos as many people imagine. Traditionally, they buried their homes in sod as insulation against the brutal Arctic winter. Cold is simply a part of life for these people who live as far above the Arctic Circle as Barrow, the northernmost point in the United States. South and west of Barrow, on the shores of the Chukchi Sea, lies Kotzebue, an old Eskimo fishing village. The town is very much alive in the 20th century, continuing to ignore its sometimes harsh and always remote setting.
We're 30 miles north of the Arctic Circle, and the Soviet Union is closer than Fairbanks. Here, the native Inupiaq people have made a successful example of life in the Arctic region.
Even though there are only 2 hours of daylight in Kotzebue at midwinter, the village is anything but sleepy. There is movement everywhere in this town of roughly 4,000. And traditional modes of transport go side by side with new ways to bring home the Christmas tree. Though the gas that fuels the snow machines may have come from the North Slope, it must be refined down south and then shipped back, raising the prices. The local grocery also holds some surprises for visitors from the lower 48.
Because most of Alaska has almost no growing season, most of the food has to be shipped in from the southern 48 states, making the stuff of life more expensive. Milk sells for $5 a gallon, and the cereal we pour the milk on costs more than $5 a box. A box of diapers that can be bought in the South for $10 sells here for $19.
Newcomers to Kotzebue are shocked at the prices, but wages are higher here too. And if you've grown up in this area, high prices are just another fact of life. The native Inupiaq Eskimos have melded their own ways with those of the outside world, so the local butcher case is stocked with reindeer meat. Kotzebue has a radio station with a huge listening area, tying together many smaller outlying villages.
Good afternoon, Northwest Alaska. This is Wes Goodwin with the Kotzebue Local Forecast from the National Weather Service. Blizzard warning has been canceled.
Residents of this disparate region depend on COTS radio for information and communication. The station holds a weekly call-in show that acts as a sounding board for the personal and public concerns of the community. They've also received a special dispensation from FCC rules against private messages and hold a daily radio bulletin board open to civic notices and individual deliveries.
To Clyde Deering from Marlene, I put a small package on Ryanair for Georgianne. Everything else is okay. There'll be an 11-mile open dog race, 1 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, December 17th and 18th. We'll start in front of the Eskimo building. There'll be a $25 entry fee.
Enormous satellite dishes mark the Kotzebue skyline, sending messages to the people.
When Alaska became a state in 1959, the space age had just begun. Today, space-age communications technology links the remotest parts of this vast state with the rest of the world.
Long ago, all communication had to happen face-to-face, and one needed a good dog team to talk with a distant neighbor. In Alaska, the communications revolution began in this century as lines were connected to link remote communities by telegraph. Only recently have many towns and villages received radio and television, thanks to the explosion in satellite technology.
The state of Alaska, the state government up here, funded the transmission system and then appointed a committee to sit down and once every 3 months select what television programming they wish to view. And they can choose from any of the networks. And once every 3 months, this committee called RATNet, Rural Alaska Television Network, will pick and choose what they want to watch. And you'll see program schedules would drive a network programmer crazy. Bugs Bunny, followed by 60 Minutes, followed by All in the Family, followed by who knows what. And every 90 days, they can change their programming. I'm told that television in the rural areas has caused considerable problems. Some of the old-timers are very concerned that some of the old traditions and the old native arts and crafts are dying off. The plus side, people are now finding out that there's an awful lot more to the world than ice and snow and barren tundra. And youngsters are getting better educations. They're moving to, some of them moving to the better cities. Some are not going home. That's where the criticism lies. Others are, and they're better off for it.
Winter in the Arctic region can be cold and lonely, but the local radio station today helps to extend the native tradition for contact and communication.
The technology enhances, I think, the traditions of natives sharing. They can share through technology in a way that they couldn't before, but yet I think it enhances native cultures.
Another link to the native past are the regular visits of tribal doctors to Kotzebue. They travel the region, stopping a few days in each community to bring traditional healing to those who need it. They also help to maintain the use of native languages throughout the region. The Eskimos on this flight are going to visit relatives, but this is no ordinary trip. This was the first friendship flight, a project begun in 1987 as an effort to bring together the native Eskimos of Alaska with those of the Soviet Union. Before World War II, the Alaska-Siberia border was open to Eskimos, so they could preserve their nomadic ways, hunting and living in the islands on both sides of the Bering Sea. With the coming of glasnost, years of separation were ended, and families that had not seen each other for over 40 years were reunited. The project was pioneered by Jim Stimple, a Nome realtor who saw the need to reconnect American and Soviet Eskimos. He first tried to make contact with a weather balloon, and after going through more official channels, his hope came to fruition on the Siberian island of Providenia. Alaska is an abundance of beauty and strength, both natural and human.
Alaska is the stuff of fables, a fabulous state in size, natural resources, and most especially its people. This spectacular setting holds vast treasures, animals, forests, minerals, energy that have to be wrested from the earth and water. Extreme conditions of distance, weather, and rugged terrain make this a difficult challenge. In only 30 years of statehood, Alaskans have already experienced a cycle of boom and decline, huge influxes of people, and more than a fair share of natural disasters. Through it all, we see the spirit, the unique Alaskan spirit of determination, love of the land, and an optimism about the future that holds the promise that the 21st century will be the Alaskan century.
Our special salute to Alaska continues all week long. Each night at 7:30, we'll take a look at the wonders of our 49th state as we continue to celebrate. Tomorrow night at 7:30, only on the Discovery Channel.